This
screen.
conference
And
will now be recorded.
thank you, Carol. Once you are in programming, it will tell you that at the top of the screen. All right. And as you add things into your program, it's going to tell you how long your program is. So you have an idea of exactly how much or how many stitches, what the length of it is. You have a little tiny blue cursor, which you may or may not be able to see on my screen. Right now we're at 0 because we don't have anything in there. Once you start putting things in, like I'm going to just select a stitch here, then the arrows which let you move within your stitch sequence become active. And you will have an up arrow, and depending on where you are in your stitch sequence, those can change. And it shows you on your handout on page 2, close to the middle, that if there's a line on one of the arrows, that means like this one, it says, okay, I'm going to go to the top. When the line is on the arrow pointing down, then you're going to go to the bottom of your sequence instead of having to go stitch by stitch through your sequence. If you have something in a program and you decide that you want to change something in it, I'm in the sewing mode now, and over on the left-hand side of your screen, you have a square with what looks kind of like a pencil in it. That's your edit symbol that will take you right back to your program screen and put in your program screen the stitches that you have already in there, and you can edit them. Supposing I wanted to now add another stitch, but I wanted to mirror image it, I could do that. And then when I went back to my sewing screen, then my sequence is going to look different. Also, if I go back to my edit screen, now my length is 63.
Look it up, and
You have the stitch that is, quote, active is highlighted in blue. And if you wanted, pardon?
Where is the edit stitch?
The edit symbol?
Yeah.
Okay, it's over here on the left-hand side. See this? And on your...
Oh, after you got out of programming.
After you got out of programming, right. When you're in programming, edit is automatically active.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
No, that's fine. Please do. Please do interrupt me, okay? All right. So my active stitch is always blue. If I like what is happening with my blue stitch, I can move up to my other stitch, or I can move back down. If I wanted to sew this as a individual sequence, just those 2 stitches, then I could put a fix at the bottom. I could also put a tie off and cut, and I could put a stop. So it would stitch out that stitch sequence, plus it would do a tie off stitch, it would cut it, and then the machine would stop. However, if I wanted to go back and add a tie off stitch at the beginning of my sequence, then I could use my arrow with the line, the arrow pointing up with the line on top, and that takes me to the very top of my stitch sequence, and I could put a fixed stitch up there. So then when I went to stitch it out, it still shows a continuous sequence, but you'll notice that it shows the fix at the beginning, the fix at the end, the cut, and the stop. So it's actually going to act as if my stop button were on. This is all it would sew out, and it would stop at the end. All right, and those functions that you have here on the screen in sewing are the same functions you're going to see when you program in embroidery. All right, so it operates the same. You have access to your stitches and so forth in both sewing and embroidery mode. Okay, so let's do this. Let's on page, let's see, turn the page the wrong way. All right, we're going to, on the bottom of page 2, it talks about building a program stitch, and please be in the sewing mode.
Oh,
Okay, rather than embroidery.
okay, I'm sorry. How do I get to the sewing mode?
Well, there's a couple ways. Up here on top, you can, there's the very symbol on the top right is a toggle between sewing and embroidery. Or you can use your Joy of Sewing button and click on sewing, and down at the bottom say start new.
Got it.
Okay, so you've got a, it's the several ways to skin a cat thing. All right. Okay, so since I have something that I had built in programming, if I went to edit, it would take me right back to that stitch or that stitch sequence. However, if I want to start something new, then I'm going to go down to the bottom again and touch my A with my zigzag symbol, and that gives me a clean screen to program. All right? All right. I like when you shake your head, Brenda.
You can't hear it rattle?
Not yet. Must not be rattling very loud. All right, page 3, top of the page, says select stitch C, menu C on your stitch. Make sure you're in the stitch menu down here. Okay, and then go to menu C, and in menu C, pick stitch number 25. All right, this is what your screen should look like. And it should say program length of 31. All right, then we want to add some letters to it. So we're going to go to our font menu, the A symbol down here at the bottom, not all the way at the bottom, but at the bottom of the stitch menu. And it brings up our keyboard on the bottom here. So we want to type in an uppercase S. Then we want to turn off the caps and then type in I-Z-E, then a space with the space bar down at the bottom. Then we want to go to our numbers and type in a 2. Then we are going to go close the keyboard menu by touching on this little square with a line at the bottom over in the right-hand corner, maybe. And then we want to go back to our stitch menu and menu C and touch stitch C25 again. Now, on number 8, she says the instructions say mirror to side, and then, oh, I really meant to mirror it end to end. The instructions say that you can delete the stitch, then re-enter it, and then do your end-to-end mirror. However, if you had done the side-to-side mirror as it says in number 8, you don't really have to delete that stitch. You can just turn off the side to side and then turn on your end to end. You don't have to delete it. You can basically undo your end to end or your side to side mirror and then turn on your end to end. Does that make sense? Brenda, you okay with that? You want me to do it again?
Well, I'm not sure if my machine um, is looking the right image there. Ah. And of course, I'm not very good at this, so.
That's okay. Did you enter the
Size 2.
C25 again?
I'm
Did you
not
add the behind the 2? You have the size 2 in your on your screen?
Yeah.
And then did you go back to your stitch menu, this kind of magenta one down here, and then pick menu C and touch 25 again?
Oh, no, thanks.
Okay.
Slow but sure.
That's okay. Just please don't let me go on when you aren't sure or nothing's working right. Okay? So when you put 25 in there, we want it to look a mirror of what we did with the first stitch up here. So the instructions on number 8 on page 3 say to use the mirror side to side button. But she said, and they're teaching us that you can correct things, okay? So if you've accidentally done mirror side to side, if you touch it again, it will undo the mirror side to side, and then you can touch the mirror end to end and get it to look like you want it to.
Got it. Yep.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's also the skin a cat thing. All right, so on number 10, it says if you want to sew this out only one time, you can add the stop, fix, and thread cut commands, but please don't add them in that order because they're going to operate in that order. If you put the stop in immediately, it's going to stop. It's not going to do the fix and the thread or cut until you start the machine up again. So the way you really would like them to happen is that you would want it to fix the stitch, you would want it to cut, and then you would want it to stop. And we probably would want to go back to the top and use our arrow with pointing up with the line on top and add a fix command up there at the top. All right. So this is what, if I were doing this kind of a thing, that's what I would want to do. I would start off with my fix command, my decorative stitch, my words, my decorative stitch mirrored, then another fix, a cut, and a stop. And that's exactly what the machine would sew out. It would sew that sequence out and stop. Any questions on that? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. I like the note on number 12 where she is saying she would like to have this size label in all of her garments. But
Yeah.
yeah, that is kind of cute, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now if you were going to sew this out, then you would go down to the bottom and touch your check mark, and it would bring you back into the sewing mode. And again, it's going to show it as a repeating pattern, but it's also going to only sew out one at a time. Supposing you as it would sew out here, they would be right next to each other. But if you wanted to be able to separate them, you could move your fabric or ribbon or whatever you were sewing on. And then when you started the machine up again, it would start with the new fixed stitch at the top and just stitch out one repeat and stop. All right. You can save your program stitches as it talks about on page 4 at the bottom by touching the heart down here at the bottom. That will take you into your save screen, and you can save it either to you have two symbols up here. You have the cloud, and if you have a USB device plugged in, it will highlight this one also, and you could choose between the two. This one saves it to your machine, and it also saves it to the cloud. It has a bar down here where you can type in the new stitch name. You can erase that by touching the little backward arrow with the X on it down here in the keyboard. If you sit on it, it will wipe the whole thing out. You can see on mine that I have several different folders in my cloud. I also have, I also have some individual stitches, and it tells me a stitch by that symbol that is there. And then I have embroidery designs. And if I want to see pictures of these instead of just the name, then this little 9-patch symbol up here on the top right hand, if I touch that, then everything comes up in pictures. Of course, the folders don't unless I open them, but the stitches come up in pictures and my embroidery designs come up in pictures. So that surely is not where I want to save that. So, or what I want to save that as. So you can just type in a name if you want to save it, and then touch the check mark, and it will save your stitch for you, which you can recall. And if you save it, let's see, where am I? Okay, if you save it, you can go back to either in the sewing mode or actually in the programming mode, which I found out today. You can touch on a stitch and load it in your sewing mode, and your edit symbol will come up in case you want to use that, and or you say, oh, I think I don't like the way it looks. You could actually edit something that you had previously saved. All right, and I could suppose this is one I've previously saved, so I can bring that right into, I'm in program right now. I could bring that right into program also and edit it. So I don't have to load it in the sewing mode and then go into edit to get to the program mode to edit it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna jump over to embroidery for a second here. Oops, first I have to get out of program. Okay, so if I go to the embroidery mode, and I have the same design that I've built, this did not transfer over from the sewing mode. I built this in embroidery, all right? If I select it, then down here at the bottom, my same edit symbol becomes active, and I can touch it and it will put me back in the program mode. And that looks just exactly like the program mode from the sewing platform. All right, so you've got all the same symbols on the side. One thing I did not mention in the sewing part was that down here at the bottom, you have the controls that you can adjust stitch width and stitch length, and also I don't know that that works real well. I thought that maybe that was density, but it's not. It's needle position. So programming in the embroidery mode is going to be the same as programming in the sewing mode. All right, any questions on that one? Okay. Let's see. Oops, looks like we went through most everything. When you save a stitch or in embroidery mode, it's going to go in as a design. It's not going to go in as a stitch sequence. When you save it, if you want to make a new folder over here where you put your name, this gray bar that you would put your name in, there's this little symbol with a file folder shape and a plus on it, would let you create a folder and name it, and then you would open that folder and save your stitch or design in that folder. Okay, just kind of like you do on the computer. All right, any question on, oh, one thing I do need to tell you. When you go into programming on I'm in embroidery right now, all right? And if I go into programming in embroidery, I automatically get 2 fixed stitches. And as I start adding stitches in there, it goes, the top fixed stitch stays at the top and the bottom stitch moves down so that you have a fixed stitch on both ends of your embroidery. Okay, in sewing mode, if you want a fixed stitch, come on, and you go into programming mode, it comes up blank. If you want a fixed stitch, you have to add it in sewing. In embroidery, you get them for free. You can take them out if you don't want them in embroidery, but they will automatically be there. A question on that one, Mary?
So, in the embroidery mode, I noticed that they have the cut symbol and everything, but because it's an embroidery, will it automatically cut the thread at the end, or do you have to program it in?
It would cut it if you had a color change.
But
I don't think it will. I don't think it will cut it unless you either have a color change or you put in that cut symbol.
Okay, I meant like if we did just the one that the exercise has, it's just a single design.
Right.
So, and normally, you know, with the color change, it doesn't always cut the bobbin thread, it just cuts the top, I think.
Yes.
And so, but at the finish, it cuts everything. And that's the one I'm talking about. Because knows it's the end of the embroidery, would it automatically cut it? Or you don't know?
I would think so.
Okay,
I haven't tried it, but it should treat it just, as far as it knows, it's a design like anything else. It doesn't know that we've programmed it.
yeah,
It's just going to be a VP3 design, and it's going to treat it like any other design.
okay, thanks.
Good question. Thank you. So if you would like to program this out in, and I would suggest sewing, or Mary could try it in embroidery and stitch it out and see how it works. You're welcome to do that. Would anybody like to do that? Just to reinforce how it works. Okay.
We don't seem to be jumping on that
I
bandwagon.
noticed that. Okay, well then we will proceed to page 6 where we're talking about 8-way stitches. And I don't know, but I feel that we've done these before, but they're fun to do. Sometimes it takes a little thinking to get them to do what you want to do. So I'm going to go back to sewing mode. And come on, machine. Lazy today. Okay. And again, we're going to be in programming. All right. So I'm just going to do what she said, what is said in here in this instructions. I'm on page 6 and I'm going to be about the middle of the page where it says menu T 8-way stitches. If you look at your menu T in your stitch menus, you have 2 sets of arrows. The first set will give you straight single stitches. The second set will give you triple stitches. So following the instructions, I'm in sewing, I'm in program, and I'm in menu T. I'm going to select in the upper section, the straight single stitches, the down arrow, which is right below the stitch symbol here. And that puts a little stitch in my stitch sequence. My program length is 2 because down here at the bottom, I have a stitch width and I have a stitch length. So I can actually adjust the stitch width and length of these stitches that I'm adding into my stitch sequence, and you'll see how that helps in a bit here. All right. So you're going to select that straight stitch, and then you're going in menu T still. In the top section, you're going to select this arrow here, the bottom right-hand corner, and put 6 of those stitches in there. So you can touch it 6 times. All right, and you get this little diagonal line. Then we're going to go to menu F in our stitch menu, and we're going to select stitch 28, which is the heart. So now we have a heart. Now we're going back to the menu T. Come on, machine. and we are going to use the stitch arrow that is the bottom left-hand corner. So we're going to make a diagonal line. I had to quit talking while I was counting. And we're going to make it the same length as our other diagonal line, 6 stitches. And right now my program length says 42. Then we're going to go back to stitch menu F, and we're going to put in another heart, number 28. But this time, nope, I don't want you. This time we want to mirror that heart side to side. So we've got our heart, the points of our hearts facing in, right? And my menu now says 58 millimeters. Okay. Now, on top of page 7, it says select menu T and use the right hand arrow and put in 6 more stitches. All right. And this will repeat itself. So you could put more of them in there, but this will be a same sequence. And go ahead and touch your check mark and see what happens. Your hearts are not in a straight line. So in my way of thinking, I'm going to edit, go back to programming using my edit, and I'm going to delete those last 6 stitches. And when I do that and then go back into sewing, then my hearts are in line. So cross out number 6 on top of page 7 if you want your hearts in line. That makes sense? Because otherwise it was going to keep moving them to the right. And sometimes you might want that effect rather than having them always in a straight line. That makes sense, Brenda?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Judy, you okay?
Okay.
All right. So that's just a little tiny exposure to the 8-way stitches. And I thought I'd show you some of the ones that I've played with and I really like. So bear with me here. And let's see, this one. This is one where this is actually stitch number, where am I? Block F46. Stop, F, come up. And 46, I don't know whether you can see this real well on my screen. It's a little square and it's actually this stitch. But I put 4 of them together and it starts out stitching. Well, let me just bring this up. It starts out at the very top corner. You can see the black dot. It starts out at the corner. I put 4 of them together, but in order to get them to come up as a big one, I had to use the 8-way stitches. Say I stitched out the first one and it ended down here at the bottom. Then I had to use 8-way stitches to get myself over to this part. Let me use, where's the pencil? Oh, I had to get over to this corner for the next one to start because that was the top of it. So I used 8-way stitches to work my way up to that corner. And then when it stopped down here, so then I used 8-way stitches going this way to work my way up to this corner and put this one in. So it finished here, and I worked my way up to the middle to put this one in, and it ended down here. Does that make sense? And this is what it looks like, yeah, stitched out, which is kind of cool.
It is kind of cool.
And it, you know, it's, and some of them are flipped side to side because I didn't want this. This is a stitch out that I did before today. And I noticed today that I didn't want these little lines together. So that I was able to bring that in and then flip that last diamond so that my stitches now are not, the little lines don't touch each other. Just a little picky-unish me kind of thing. So there's a lot of things you can do with these. I have, let's see, this one, oh, I don't want that one. Oh, stop. What are you doing? Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button, sorry. I was trying to get rid of that design. Okay. This one was actually in an exercise from Viking, and I really, really like this one. When you stitch it out, this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can, there you go.
Nice.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
That is stitch E52. And I can give you the sequence on that if you would like.
I would like that, yeah.
Okay, so let me get out of program and let me go in with a clean screen. Okay, so we're going to start off in menu E, and we're going to pick stitch number 52. All right, that's, oh, sorry, it's over here, right? And that's what stitch 52 looks like. Then we're going to go to our T menu. We're going to bounce back and forth between the E menu and the T menu. We're going to go to our T menu, and we are going to use the upper right hand corner arrow, and we're going to do 4 stitches. All right. Then we're going to go back to our E menu, and we're putting in another E52 stitch. All right. Now, it's not quite in line, okay? So I can go back to my last stitch, and I can't make it. I was going to try to make it longer, but it's not going to let me make it longer. So if I really am wanting that to be in perfect alignment, what I could do would be to say shorten that stitch and then go back to my T menu, add one more in and shorten it and change the width on it until that was perfectly in line. All right. So instead of 4 stitches in there, I had 5 stitches, and my last stitch is a stitch width of 1 and a length of 1.3. So you can, stop wiggling. You can adjust positions by doing that, by fiddling, if you will, with your stitch width and your stitch length. Because the straight stitch is going to come in at a 0 width and a length of 2. Okay. So now I can go back and I can add some more stitches. And again, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to adjust the width again. And I forgot what it was. And then I'm going to go back to my E menu and add stitch 52 again. Okay. I'm going to go back 1 stitch. Whoops. There we go. 1 and 0.8. Okay. So now I've just added stitch 52 and I'm going to add another one right away. But this time I'm going to mirror it not that way, end to end. So that makes the middle part, come on, that makes this part where the stitches are facing each other. All right. So now we need to be going the other direction. So we're going to go back to our T menu and we're going to use the upper left-hand corner. And now these are going out into space. And I'm going to just automatically adjust this one to the numbers that I used before. And then go back. Yes?
What was your width adjustment there?
0.8
Okay.
on the last stitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you
Okay.
tilt your camera up a little bit, Judy?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thanks, Mary. Okay. Is that better?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that one. No. What did I do? Oh, I need to, on all of the ones on this side where you're coming back down, you need to mirror them end to end. All right.
Judy,
Mm.
instead of doing each one of these, is it possible to do something similar to a copy and paste?
You don't have copy and paste in here.
Well, something similar to that. In other words, duplicate it or.
You can only duplicate an individual stitch.
Okay.
What would be handy would be if you could duplicate the series of straight stitches plus the decorative stitch. But you could, if you'd have to go through a, what I would think would be an involved process of creating just that particular sequence and saving it. And then you could bring that particular sequence back in.
Okay, so
That would, you know, kind of replicate your copy and paste.
all right, so the button underneath the scissors, that's not a duplicate.
That is a duplicate, but it will only duplicate the stitch that is in blue.
Okay. All right,
One at a time.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and the original instruction had you put all of those E52 stitches in and then work your way back using the arrow stitches to put the straight stitches in to offset them. I kind of like to do it as I go along. It's a, you know, a kind of a personal preference on my part. You could do it either way. But yes, you know, you would have to, you know, just create the one stitch, the one decorative stitch plus the following straight stitches, save that, and then keep bringing that in till you got as many as you want, and then probably bring them in and flip them the other way to do the other side. Does that make sense, Lee? Okay. All right. So back to my place, and I think I know where I'm at. And the fifth stitch is 0.8, and I think 1.3, and then I'm going to add my F. You're making me think, Lee. E, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong menu, E52. And mirror it. Okay, so that should be our sequence, and that's how it should be in sewing. You can do the same kind of thing with E53, which is a similar stitch, but the little legs on the fan part are longer on E53. So when you face two of them up at the top, those cross and make a little hatched, if you will, design at the top instead of just meeting like they did with F52. And those are curved rather than straight. And then my challenge to myself this morning was this one that I had done a while back, and it's the diamond stitch, which is F39. And let me go into edit on here and show you. Let me get rid of that last diamond stitch, and I'll try to see. Come on, focus, little camera. All right, see my line is curved here. The only way you can get it to curve is every straight stitch that you put in from menu T, you need to adjust the length and the width of it. Otherwise, if I go into, and let me go, I don't want to go to the beginning, I want to go to the end. And what did I say? It was F39. Okay, put my diamond back in there. All right, now, if I wanted to put another diamond here in my triangle, and I have to work from this point down to here, where they connect. But if I go to my T menu and I just put in, let me back off a bit. If I just use that one, then can you see what's happening to my line? It's going up at a 45. So I'm in, see where my blue line is? If I put the same stitch in there now, it's going to overlap what I already have there. All right. And that's not good. So what I would need to do would be to go in and adjust the length and the width of those straight stitches. And that one's okay. I wrote these down this morning so I could, no, the other way. So if I adjust that one to, let's see, I adjust the length of that one. See how my diamond is moving as I adjust the length of those? And one more. Because I've adjusted the length of those connecting stitches, then the diamond is where I want it to be. And there's nothing, no hard and fast rule about it. You just have to put them on the screen and play with your stitch length and your stitch width to get them to where you want them to be. Mary's thinking, I can tell. It's a little bit easier on the FOF machine because they have 16-way stitches, so you can and instead of just these 8 ways, there's another stitch in between each one of those 2. And don't ask me why FOF has it and Viking doesn't. That's just a difference in the machines. So you can manipulate a little bit easier on the FOF and do some pretty cool things with some of the stitches. So you might play with some of those when you have, if you're inclined, if that kind of a thing kind of flips your switch, it does mine, because I spent my life as a computer programmer, so I'm into nits and bits. Any questions on that? You know, if it doesn't do anything for you, that's fine. You can just ignore it and go on. Now, because I added that 4th diamond in there, see what it does to my stitch out? It makes them as a stepped line. If I went back and I deleted that last diamond and those last stitches, and then I go back, then I get a straight line. You have to pay attention to where the beginning and the end of your decorative stitches are. All right.
Yeah, I can see that. Let me ask you a question. What I want to do for Christmas is to put the names on the ribbon.
Uh-huh.
Cool.
Would you personally put that, would you stitch it out or would you put it in embroidery? The reason I'm questioning it is, you know, with the Epic 2, we've got the lasers, so I can try to get it straight, and I don't have to keep stopping and rehooping to get a big, long ribbon of it. But have you ever done that, or has anybody else ever done that, and what has been successful to everybody? Because that's where you could program the name and a stitch and stuff like that easily.
How big are you wanting to make, say, in height?
Well, it has to wrap around in height.
Yeah, the name in height.
How wide is your ribbon? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm asking how big does she want the letters to be? Or do you, I mean, you're going to be, if you're doing it in um, stitch mode, you're going to be limited to 9 millimeters. That's the tallest your letter can be.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I think that would be, well, I don't know now that I think about it. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Okay, because when you go into your fonts in sewing, you only have, well, they do say this block is 12 points, but let's see. Let's put Mary in here. Okay, and then go away, and we put you back in sewing. Okay, that's how big it's going to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. I would have thought about it as soon as I started stitching it.
And your fonts, you don't have any satin kind of fonts in stitching, in sewing. Whereas,
Yeah, I was thinking that, well, I could really loosen the density. I wouldn't want anything real thick to, shred the ribbon.
yeah,
Okay. But that
so
answers it. I'd want it wider than 9 millimeters.
I would think so. You still have access to all of those same fonts I'm in embroidery now.
Right.
Embroidery, but you've got all the embroidery fonts then also,
Yeah.
which you can, some of them, again, like some of them aren't real dense. But then, there are some that are much more elaborate.
Right. Right.
So you're wanting to put the name down the whole length of the ribbon that you tie the package with?
Yeah, that's what I was planning to do, but things change. But I've got 4 kids in one family. I do towels for every year, and I
Uh-huh.
thought this way I would just wrap the ribbon around the towel with their name on it. So I could just line up in embroidery. I could line up the 4 ribbons probably in a single hooping and have it go right down, couldn't I?
Yeah. Do you have really long names?
No, no.
Okay, well, your magnetic hoop might, and some kind of sticky stabilizer might be a good thing for that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And I've got the big hoop, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you. Thanks for
You're
your
welcome.
input.
All right. If you have looked or are looking at the project that came with this lesson, it's a zipper bag. Our FOF workbook lesson also had a zipper bag in it. Must be the time of year. But it's kind of the decoration on the bag is with some of the decorative stitches and words and sayings and even some of the laser stitches. And I went through it and I made a couple of notes on mine, which you may want to do on yours. On page 2, number 1, they didn't mention that you wanted to be in sewing mode and you wanted to have your zigzag plate on in order to, if you try to put in, if you have your single hole plate on and you go into programming mode and you put in a decorative stitch when you go back to the sewing mode, it will give you nothing but a straight stitch. So in order to get your programming to be effective, you need to have your zigzag plate on. All right. On page 3, beginning at number 5 through 15, they go through a manual sequence of doing the laser stitch, but you could program that just as well and not have to do it manually. And if you wanted to program it, I can read you the sequence and I'll go slowly. So you would select stitch I9 and then select stitch I9 again, but mirror it side to side. That would be your first pass. It's going to take 2 passes to create the stitch sequence that they show in the picture. So the first pass is just 2 copies of stitch I9, but the second I9 is mirrored side to side. To do the second pass, again, it's 2 copies of stitch I9. This time, the first I9 is mirrored side to side, and the second one is just as it comes in. That makes sense? It's just, you know, to me, it's much easier if I can program something and don't have to worry about it. I'm missing a step or whatever as I go along. And that's pretty much the notes that I had for the project. So, any questions, any confusion about what we've gone through today? Okay.
No, thanks.
Thank you for being here. It's nice to have you back in class, Mary. I missed you.
Oh, I missed you guys too, but I think I'm all done with doctors, so
Oh, good.
hopefully I'll be able to attend.
All
But
right.
Carol's saying no more, right?
Yeah. Well, just for grins, this is some stuff I messed with on the FOF with
That's cute.
the different stitches. I particularly like these leaves.
Yeah, yeah, I do too.
Those are beautiful.
And
Yeah.
the FOF has a diamond, well, poodles has a diamond stitch also. And but it doesn't come to a really tight point at the bottom. So when you put those together, they look a little different.
Yeah.
But it's you know, it's time consuming, but it's fun.
And you just have to think about it before you're sitting down with the project so that you don't, revert back to the same old, same old.
Yeah, we like to do, we would prefer to do things that are easy.
Your phone with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never preference.
Wait a minute, let me check.
Okay. So being able to edit a program sequence, whether you've just now done it or whether you've saved it, is great. And the fact that you can bring a saved program sequence back into the programming mode, you don't have to go into, go out to the sewing mode, bring it in, and then go back to edit it. They're doing great things with these machines.
Oh, I know it. I know it.
They sometimes more than my brain can handle.
I know, I've had them, well, like you, for several years, and every time I'm learning something new about them, or, remembering something that maybe I heard at one point, but yeah, but now I'm ready to use it, so.
Yeah, there's I don't think you can ever know all about it. Well, maybe Karen Charles probably knows everything, but us normal people.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, but then you think about it, that's her job,
Right.
I
And
knew a
she has
lot more
fun.
about what, pardon me?
She has fun playing.
Oh, and so creative, so creative.
Yes.
It's scary how her brain works. So,
Well, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
look
Thank
forward
you.
to
Thank
seeing
you.
you again.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you, Judy. That was great.
Thank you, Brenda. Nice to have you. Take care
Yeah.
and have a good
Getting
week.
it. Yeah, learning it all slowly.
Well, keep at it. There's lots and lots to learn. And
I
if you
know.
remember
Well,
something about what we're doing and I haven't brought it up, please do bring it up.
now, okay, this is topic 10. And so I think I got topic 9, but so do you repeat?
We haven't so far because they keep putting more of them out.
Can I get the previous topics? Because I just got the machine, September or so.
Okay.
So can I get 1 through 8 to see what they're doing, or?
Yes. I will
Okay.
email them to you, but it will take multiple emails.
No problem.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah.
And it may not be immediate.
No problem there either.
No, I will be glad to share with you.
Okay, yeah, great.
The more you learn about your machine, the happier you're going to be with it and the more things you're going to be able to do.
Yes, because what you just showed us with your stitching and number, in I and stuff, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's amazing,
Yeah, and there is one workbook section that is on those laser stitches,
Okay.
the eye stitches.
You know what? I tried because I was messing around and finishing what is it called? The placemats. I made placemats to go with the table runner that Karen Charles, had done. That's how I got my machine, is doing those things. And I found out that you cannot remove the stops from the laser stitches.
No, you can't. And that's for good reason.
It's frustrating.
Well, yes and no. It allows you a really easy way to make sure that your stitches are lined up correctly.
Okay.
I mean, because it's moving the fabric side to side and front to back and so forth, you need to keep your hands on the fabric to just gently guide, keep it in position. And it's sometimes very difficult to do that. So by stopping at the end of each one of those stitches, and you're maybe just a hair off of the line, you can move the fabric back so you are right on the line, and then your stitches are going to come out like you want them, where you want them.
You mean I have to become more of a perfectionist? Okay.
Well,
I mean, I get it, but when I had tried to program things in, and And I actually had it then in the embroidery part, which to me, you know, you're on the embroidery hoop, it doesn't go anywhere
Yeah.
except where you meant. It would have been nice to be able to take them off when I was in that. I think that's when I was trying to use it. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that.
So, okay.
So, yeah, they have reasons for things. Sometimes they don't think, whoever the developers are, don't think the same way that we do. And if it really bugs enough people, they will acquiesce and change it.
Okay. So where could I say it would be really nice if when I'm in the embroidery and doing it on the hoop, it didn't stop with the laser at every stop. We could remove those stops.
Um,
Mind you, it might take a generation before I get back to doing it that again, but
I think if you go on the Viking website,
okay.
there's a contact us
Okay.
on there.
Yeah, I have to get my machine hooked up to my internet yet.
Okay,
But yes.
but you know, this is on your computer. You go to the Viking
Yes.
website.
Yeah.
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 Okay. You know, you can send them all sorts of suggestions or complaints or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, my next question is, in embroidery, have you found what it would be, because they said this designer Epic 2 can take any, you know, several kinds of how it was stored, you know, like EXP, VIP.
Oh yeah, they can read different formats. It can read
Is there,
different.
yeah, read different formats. Does it handle one type better than any others? Do you know what I'm asking?
The native format for the Epic 2 would be VP3.
EP3. Okay. Thank you.
And it's equally as comfortable with VP4, but you don't usually, if you're getting designs
Yeah.
from
Well,
someplace else, you'll get the VP3.
okay. Yeah. Well, but I also have art and stitch because I have a long arm. And I was trying to figure out what would be best, you know, because I can do stuff and bring it to my Epic too. And I didn't know. I mean,
a lot of people will use the D as in dog, ST format. That's a commercial format. And the colors are always going to be awful, if you will, because the first color is always going to be like green, the second red, the third one blue, and so forth in those designs. But they
okay.
are, you know, that you know, it's just a commercial format and it's kind of universal.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. That sounds good. So
Okay.
exciting to play with stitches. Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And
Yeah.
I look forward to you in another class.
Yes. I now know enough. I'm going to go sign up.
Yes, please sign up and then Carol will have you.
Yeah. Well,
She
she
gets
told
a
me,
list
oh, I'll
off
sign you
of it.
for them all. No, that didn't happen. So I got to do it. And I get
Okay,
that.
well, I'm
Thank
glad I could get you the handout that you could follow along.
Okay. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Okay, Ms. Benetti.